Good evening. This is Dave Bainbridge. I'm the Assistant Council Commissioner for Bay Lakes Council, and I'll be your host tonight for our charter renewal training for the units. I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. A couple of housekeeping items I'd like to share before we get started. Because of the large number of participants we've got, I have everybody on mute. We are recording this presentation, and it will be posted to the council website for unit rechartering. So if there are questions later by units, or for those who weren't able to join us, they will be able to check that as a resource. We also have Doug Ramsey and Jen Newville from the council office. They will be monitoring the chat questions. So if you've got questions about any of the details in charter renewal during the process, please chat them. They'll record that. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have a general Q&A session and answer as many of those questions as we can. We'll also use the chat questions that come in to put together an FAQ, and those answers to your questions will be posted on the council website so that you've got that information for referral. As a bit of a housekeeping item, what I would ask each of you to do is through chat, if you could log in with your name, your unit number, your position, and your email so that we have a record of who's on the meeting tonight. And that way, if we've got any questions, we can follow up. So we appreciate that. And to start out tonight, I'd like to, again, these are certainly not normal times for scouting. I don't have to tell you as unit leaders that the fact that we're doing this as a virtual training presentation as opposed to in-face at a roundtable or similar meeting is a testimony to that. But the fact that even though we've been challenged because of COVID with the way that we do scouting, doesn't mean that scouting needs to stop, because there's still a lot of ways that we can deliver scouting within the Cub Scouting program. If you check resources at Scouting at Home, there are links for videos and workbooks where every Cub Scout adventure can be done virtually or through links with online activities. So even though a pack may not be able to meet collectively as a pack, we can still deliver a good Cub Scouting program and have that information available. What I intend to do tonight is to provide an overview for the charter renewal process. There's a lot of information, a lot of details. I don't expect you to remember everything. And the biggest part that I want to highlight tonight are some of the changes and key tips that you need to be aware of, but also to show you where the resources are so that as you continue with the charter renewal process, you'll know where to go to get help, be it the council webpage, through the commissioner staff, some of the other resources that we've got available. So let's get started with our presentation tonight. Doug, no. I can't get it to advance. There you go. All right. So a quick overview on what charter renewal is. And the simplest way to think about it, it's an annual renewal of your unit's charter with the National Council. And there's a couple of steps to go through with that. It's an update of your membership roster for both your the youth members and the adult leaders with your unit. It's a chance to renew the charter agreement with your chartering organization, and it's a process that membership fees are paid to the National Council. There are really two basic steps to the charter renewal process. The first one is done online, and that's a process of updating your roster using the tool that the National Council provides. And then the second part is where you'll turn in your charter application and the support forms to the local council. And we'll talk about that process in more detail in a couple of minutes. So what's new for 2021? You should be aware that we've had membership fee increases. These were announced in August. And for youth members under age 20, the membership fee has gone up to $66 per year. For registered adult volunteers, it's $42 per scouter. And as before, scouters that are registered in multiple positions only have to pay one fee. New this year is a member joining fee, so that youth members that are joining a pack, troop, or crew for the very first time pay a one-time $25 fee. And then we've also had an increase to the unit recharter fee of $75. This information again was communicated in August. It's effective October 1, so you should be aware of it. The other thing that's new this year is a continuation of a process that got started last year as part of our youth protection environment. And that's Scouting's responsibility to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for our scouts. In addition to the youth protection training, we're starting a process so that every scout leader on a rotating basis will have a criminal background check done just to recertify that it's appropriate for them to continue working with the scouting program. In order to do that criminal background check, there's an authorization form that scouting needs to have on file. Those were collected last year as part of that charter renewal process. Unfortunately, we had some scout leaders that did not get that form on file. And so information that will be new this year in the member data updating process is whether or not those leaders have that form on file or whether or not it needs to be collected. And I'll show you the screen page of what that looks like in just a moment. For units that do not have that form on file, we're going to ask that units collect that required form and then submit that as part of their charter renewal packet. And you'll be able to find a link for that criminal background check form on the internet Recharter webpage, and I'll show you how to access that later during the presentation. So when you get to the online tool, again in step 2, when you're actually updating your roster, this is what the screen is going to look like. And in the very last column next to information on the youth protection training will be a column with a yes or no indicating whether or not the authorization form is on file with the local council. If there's an N, it means that no file is on, or no form is on file, and it needs to be collected and submitted as part of the charter application. So let's talk a little bit about the renewal schedule. The process has started in that basic information and access codes that units will need to be able to log into the online tool has been sent out by the council office. That was done by email to the key 3. What we're asking the units to do now is to designate their renewal processor, and that's basically the volunteer within the unit that's going to be responsible and own the rechartering process. And to get started with that process, we're reviewing your rosters for both youth members and adults so that you know who's going to be returning and if any corrections need to be made on anything from a name spelling to address, whatever it might be. The third thing that we're asking to start now is that units need to review the youth protection training certification and whose certification needs to be renewed prior to the end of the year. Throughout the council, we've got a significant number of unit level scouters whose youth protection training either has expired or is scheduled to expire before the end of the year. That needs to be addressed prior to the end of the year in order for them to be able to recharter. So get that process started as quickly as possible. In November, in the first part of the month, we would ask you to get online, use the tool to do the charter update renewal, update your roster, and get the application form actually printed out, and then start the process of getting the necessary approvals from your chartered organization. the required support forms, and collecting the fees. And then beginning in mid to late November and through the month of December, excuse me, districts will have turn-in events where you'll be able to meet with the district commissioner staff, review your application to make sure it's complete and accurate, and get it turned in for processing to the local council. The deadline that we want to have everything done is December 21st, which is obviously prior to Christmas, because it's important just to have this completed so that unit leaders don't have to worry about it. And from a council standpoint, we're in a position to start the necessary processing and to go forward. As you look at this schedule and backdate against the December 21st final deadline, I ask that you keep in mind the availability of leaders and others that you need to work with. Keep in mind that obviously we've got some holidays that fall at the end of the year and other events such as deer hunting or family vacations may impact who's available. And that's everything from getting the pastor to sign off and approve the charter, to getting a check from the treasurer to pay your fees. So again, keep the year-end holiday schedule in mind. The sooner you get this done, the less likelihood you're going to have a conflict or inability to get something done because the person you need to speak to is not available. I mentioned the importance of youth protection training, and as I'm sure you're aware, that training is required for all adult leaders registered with Scouting. The requirement for rechartering is that every adult leader certification must be current on January 1st in order for that leader to be rechartered. And as I mentioned, we've had a significant number of leaders whose training either has lapsed or will be lapsing prior to the end of the year. So we're encouraging you to get those renewals done where that's necessary. The sooner you get that done, the better. The online training takes about an hour and a quarter to complete. And we know from past experience for people that wait till late in the year and try to get on the last week or so of December, end up competing for service space and connection speed with a lot of other procrastinators. And it can make for a very frustrating or unpleasant experience. So avoid the year-end bottleneck, get that training done as soon as possible so that that doesn't become an issue or a concern for your adult leaders. A specific notice for units that are chartered through Catholic churches or organizations affiliated with the Catholic Church is the Catholic churches have a youth protection training requirement for adult leaders in addition to what the Boy Scouts has, who has youth protection training. And the purpose is the same, the material is very similar, but each diocese or archdiocese has their own specific program. And that program for units that are part of the Milwaukee Archdiocese is Safeguarding All of God's Family. For units that are part of the Green Bay Diocese, it's Virtus. And the Catholic Church requirement is that every leader working with youth through one of its affiliate organizations needs to be certified in that training. It's a one-time training. There's no expiration date as there is with BSA's youth protection training, but that's a requirement, again, for all youth or all leaders, even if they are not a member of the local parish. And so if you've got questions on that, please check with your parish training coordinator in both through the Green Bay and the Milwaukee Diocese. That training is currently available online, so that should help from a flexibility, but the church understandably is becoming much more strict about enforcing this, and we don't want to be in a position of a charter being held up because some of the adult leaders have not completed the required church training in addition to the BSA youth protection training. When you get to the point of doing your online renewal, a couple of tips for you from a browser requirement. The program works best and you're going to have the fewest problems if you use either Chrome or Foxfire operating systems. It will work with Microsoft, providing that you're working with version 11.0 or higher. You'll need to turn off your compatibility view, and you'll need to enable JavaScript. It is not compatible with an Apple operating system. So make sure whoever your enroller is at the unit level, the person responsible for doing the computer work, that they've got access to a computer with the necessary operating system. Again, the recommendation and the preference is that it's either Chrome or Foxfire. When you go to get your application actually approved, there are two options to be able to do that. One is to do it online, and we've got more and more units taking advantage of this. It's done in step 5, which is the submit roster process, and you will be prompted to have the executive officer or of your chartered organization, and that would be your church pastor, the Rotary president, the commander of the American Legion, whoever that might be, or your chartered organization representative to electronically review and approve the charter. If you check the I agree option, an email is sent to one of those individuals, and they will, again, confirm and approve it electronically. The other option you've got is more the traditional way, and that's to manually have the roster and the charter reviewed, again, by either the chartering organization executive officer or the charter organization representative. So if you check the I do not agree, you're going to get a printout of the copy, and there will be a place for signature on the first page, and it will need to be manually signed by one of those individuals. And one note as a tip is that if you do ask to, even if you approve it online, the annual charter agreement form still needs to be signed by the executive officer and the charter organization representative. So that's an additional form that's required separate from the charter application itself. So you're still going to need to make contact with that individual, get those two signatures. You've got a couple different options on a fee payment, and I want to go through and talk a little bit about that and share with you what our recommendation is. The recommendation is that your renewal fees be paid by a check, and that provides you with the greatest amount of flexibility, because after your charter is submitted, if by chance you want to make changes because somebody changed their mind and either wants to drop out or to be added prior to the charter being processed, we can make those changes at the local office and get that done without any problems. So again, a check provides the greatest flexibility. The check will be deposited into a special escrow account, and then when the funds are needed as the charter is processed, we make that accounting transfer and everything is taken care of. Second option you've got is to authorize a withdrawal from your unit account. We have some units that take advantage of this. Problems occasionally come up in that when we go to actually make the transfer and to pay the fees, there's not a big enough balance in your unit account, often because somebody from your advancement team has come in and purchased a lot of merit badges or adventure awards, whatever it might be, and drawn that balance below what's required to pay the fees. So avoid the issue of a potential overdraft situation, if you will, and some of the delays that come with that. A third option that is available is that you'll have the ability as part of the online process to pay with a credit card. And while that's certainly convenient, it does come with an additional 3% service fee, and depending on the size of your unit, that obviously could be an expensive option. The other disadvantage to that is that it's not as flexible, so that if there is a change later because a member decides not to recharter, that fee has been paid and that individual's membership fee can't be refunded. So that's effectively money lost to the unit. So again, you gain the convenience of paying online, but you lose some of the flexibility if by chance there's a change to your roster and you need to drop a member that previously signed up. As far as the turn-in process, what we are asking all units to do is to turn in their application and the supporting documents at the district level, either to one of the commissioners or a member of the professional staff. And each district will have turn-in events scheduled throughout November and December. Look for that information on the council calendar. It'll also be promoted locally through your district newsletters, Facebook, or the other media that calendar updates are done. But by turning it in at the local level, that gives us the ability to review the charter application, make sure everything is complete and accurate before it gets forwarded to the council office for processing. We don't want you to either mail it in or drop it off to the council office because we don't have an ability to review and check the application. And we found from past experiences that sometimes charters with defects or problems are submitted. We don't find it till later, and that creates processing errors and delays that could have been avoided. And again, a final reminder is do your planning so that everything is complete and turned in no later than December 21st. So here's a checklist of the 7 things that we're going to be looking for. This information, again, is posted on the council internet rechartering page. But the first thing we need is a copy of the approved final roster. And this is printed out through the online tool. Again, the approval is either done electronically or with a hard copy signature by the charter organization representative or the institution head. Do not submit the easy summary roster. That's effectively a draft roster. It's not the final version after everything has been locked in. Second thing we need are application forms for either youth or adult members who are registering for the first time with the unit during the charter renewal process. So if you don't have any new adults or youth members registering at charter renewal, this doesn't apply to you, but most units do, and especially the way recruiting is being done with smaller events, it may be much more common this year that we've got additional members coming into a unit as part of the rechartering process. Make sure with the adult application form that the required background check and disclosure form is signed and submitted with the adult application, because that's a problem that we've had in the past where those 2 forms get separated. Required for all units is the annual charter agreement form with signatures, and I'll show you what those required signatures are in a moment. This form does not print out through the online recharter process. There's a separate link on the council website for that, but that's a form that, again, verifies that your chartering organization is agreeing to renew your unit's charter for the upcoming year. We're asking that you turn in your 2020 Journey to Excellence form, even if your unit is not earning one of the award levels, and recognizing that we're asking for charter turn-ins before the end of the year. What I would ask for you to do is to show good faith. So as an example, if you've got a court of honor scheduled after your turn-in date, but before December 31st, take credit for that court of honor. But the Journey to Excellence Award provides important information back to the district and council on unit performance. It helps identify priorities and areas that we can support units on. And again, we find that many of the units within the council are offering excellent scouting program, and they're eligible for the recognition that goes with it. Obviously, under number 5, we need the charter renewal fees if they were not previously paid online with the credit card. So again, that check or the authorization to make the unit account withdrawal. We're going to ask you for the date, time, and location for your 2021 Friends of Scouting presentation. And then the last thing is to update your unit key contact information form, and that provides council information on where your unit meets, what the meeting schedule is, who your advancement chair is and some of the other key contacts. That required form is on the council website. And again, we would ask that you include that as part of the renewal packet. So again, those are the 7 things that need to be, that make up your total charter renewal application. And this is what the commissioners or your professional will review as you do that district level turn-in. So let me give you a couple of helpful tips that units have found over the last couple of years. And if you're not an experienced person doing this, hopefully you'll find this to make the process a little bit easier. When you sign on for the first time, you're going to be asked to create a password. And that's pretty typical for any application you would sign on for. And what I encourage you to do is to make it something that's going to be easy to remember. And so use your unit number. So if you're in PAC 4001, make PAC 4001 your password, because a forgotten password can only be reset by the council registrar. So your district commissioner won't be able to help you out. Your district executive won't be able to help you out. Again, the council registrar is the only person that can reset a forgotten password. Second tip is in step 1 is you're loading your roster to start that updating process. You're going to have 2 different options, and that's either load council information or upload the Recharter file. We strongly encourage that you choose the load council information option, because what that will do is to directly upload from council records so that the roster that you're working with exactly matches what we have on file at the local Scout Service Center. Any updates that happen because you've got a new member who's joined, an update or whatever it might be, will be reflected as you do an update to your charter application that's in process. If you upload it from a external file, it's a single point in time, and it doesn't necessarily match where the council records are, and it's also not going to update for any additions that you may make because a new member has joined. Third tip is when you're done with the renewal process and you're getting ready to submit, print 2 copies of your final roster. 1 copy will need to be turned in. That's what we process the records off of. But then the second one can be kept as a unit record, kind of a draft copy until everything is finalized. And that's a helpful backup just in case a question comes up later. Fourth tip we talked about before is the recommendation that you pay your fees by check. It provides you with flexibility. It avoids the additional service fee expense by paying by credit card. And again, on the chance you've got a change in a member who doesn't want to recharter, we've got the flexibility. We can drop that and make sure that the fee doesn't get paid. Whereas on the other method, that's not going to be the case. And then the last tip that I want to share is the executive officer, again, your church pastor, the Rotary president, the Legion commander, whoever it might be, even if they don't require to sign the charter roster, their signature is still required on the annual charter agreement. So make sure that you coordinate that, and if necessary, you're getting both signatures at the same time, avoiding the necessity of 2 separate trips for somebody who may be a challenge to get a hold of. So let's talk a little bit about the resources that are available to help you through the chartering process. And the first resource that I always refer individuals to is the council website. So here's a screenshot of baylakesbsa.org. Hopefully that's a familiar site for you. And if you go to the main menu, you can see the resources. Toward the right-hand side is one of the options. You're going to want to click that. The resource page opens up and you'll see 3 columns of links for various resources. In the center column for unit resources, about halfway down, you'll see the link for Internet Charter Renewal, and that's where you want to click. and that'll take you to this landing page. And everything that you need for the charter renewal process will be on this page. So here's a screenshot of what the top half of the page looks like. I'll show you the bottom half in just a moment. So there are going to be links for all the various forms. Probably one of the most useful tools is the Charter Renewal Guidebook that Jen Noble, the Council Registrar, has put together, and that's very detailed, step-by-step instructions, tips, recommendations, troubleshooting. It's a very helpful document that's available to you. The bottom half of that page, again, is going to have links to the forms that you need. So your Journey to Excellence form, again, one of the 7 documents that we're going to ask for, you can get your forms there. The background check disclosure form that you may need for leaders, the annual charter agreement form that's required. So all the various forms that you need. There's also an online tutorial on how to use the online renewal charter that's hosted by the National Council, and that will take you through screen by screen, step by step. So if you need that information or just want to double check a step, again, the resource is there and we'll be able to help you out. I mentioned one of the council resources, again, is the Renewal Guidebook. This is a very comprehensive document that Jen has put together. It's got instructions, FAQs, the how-tos, the various checklists, and some helpful tips. So odds are pretty good that if you've got a question or just want to double check a step to make sure you're in good shape, this is the place to go to get that information. One of the resources, and again, it is linked from the council website, is the tutorial on how to use the online renewal tool. And this will take you through, it's a series of screenshots, step by step for the different instructions. It has some helpful tips. So if you're not familiar with the program, it's almost identical to the program from last year. The only change is the one that I highlighted, and that's the requirement to verify for adult leaders whether or not we have the required criminal background check form on file. Another place you can go if you've got questions or need help from a troubleshooting standpoint is talk to either your district commissioner or your unit commissioner. And if you're not sure who your unit commissioner is, my suggestion is start with your district commissioner. But these are volunteer scouters. We've been trained on what the charter renewal process is. So again, if you've got questions, if you need help from a troubleshooting standpoint, whatever it might be, these are volunteers at the district level who will be in a position to help make sure that you've got a successful charter renewal process. One thing that's new this year is a process that Roy Lapine, who was our council commissioner, started, and that's his sidekick, Commissioner Clyde. He's on call 24/7, and we've implemented a dedicated email account so that if you've got questions, need help from a troubleshooting standpoint on anything that either specifically relates to charter renewal or quite frankly anything else that a commissioner can help with, send a email to this baylakescommissionerhelp@gmail.com, and that box is monitored, so the question will be answered, referred to an individual who will be able to follow up, answer your question, help you with your unit issue, whatever it might be. So this is an additional resource that we're implementing for the first time this year. We're doing it specifically for charter renewal, but it's really an ongoing resource that may be available to you if you've got questions that a commissioner can help out with. I want to talk a little bit about some of the most common mistakes and based on our experience, where we're most likely to have issues that cause defects and create processing problems or issues that have to get worked out. Probably the biggest one is with application forms, and more specifically with adult applications. and it really gets down to missing or complete information. Bottom line, all of the information on the adult application form needs to be completed in full. And so area number 1, where we ask for driver's license and social security number, that information is required for us to do the background check. And if that's omitted, we've got a problem. There's a series of questions and reference requests in box number 2. And again, if those are only partially completed, we're not able to do the necessary background check. That will create problems. Box number 3 is a place for signatures and a couple of approval initials for the adult leader who's applying for the position. So if that's unsigned, we're not able to process the application. Box number 4 is a place for your chartered organization representative to sign and approve that new leader for your unit. And unfortunately, sometimes either that box is omitted or the wrong person signs the form, where maybe your Cub Master signs or the committee chair, they are not authorized to sign and approve a new adult leader for your unit. It must be the chartered organization representative. And then in the corner, sometimes a unit number is missing, and so it's not obvious, and especially if several charters are coming in together, which unit or units that individual is going to work with. And then part of the adult application form on a separate page is the required background check authorization form. And if that is not submitted with the BSA application, again, we're not able to do the required background check, and that's going to create problems. So again, it's typically just carelessness where there's missing information. Please check the applications to make sure they're completely filled out before they get turned in. I've talked a couple of times about the required annual charter agreement form, and this is kind of a split screen as far as what the top of the form looks like and the bottom. There's a link for this form on the council website that you can print this out, and there are 3 required signatures that are needed on this form. The top one is the organization executive officer, again, your church pastor, the Rotary president, the American Legion commander, but whoever that institution head or executive officer of your charter organization. And they were basically agreeing that they're going to meet the organization's responsibility to you as the local unit. The middle signature is a district representative for scouting, and that typically is going to be either a commissioner or a professional. As your charter application gets turned in for review, we can capture the signature at that time. So there's no need to get that in advance. But again, that's the local scouting approval. And then the bottom required signature is the chartered organization representative. That's the individual that's the liaison between your sponsoring organization and your unit. So if signatures are missing, or a committee chair signs who's not registered in one of those key positions, we've got a defective application form, and that's something that needs to be corrected before we can finish the processing. Third mistakes, and it's really a couple of them that happen on occasion during the actual processing itself. Step 5 is the last step of the online process, where you finalize doing all the updates and corrections for your roster. And sometimes what happens is people make all the changes they need to, do all the adult or all the edits, but they haven't made the final step of clicking submit to formally send that in, and think they're completed when in fact they're not. So it's a big blue button at the bottom, but again, make sure you hit the submit button so you actually send it in online. Second mistake that sometimes happen is that they properly submitted the roster with the online process, and then they stop there, not realizing that they got the first step done, but not the second step, where they have to physically turn in the roster and the required forms for processing. So Again, it's a two-step process, and until the required support forms are turned in and processed, we're not done. And then the third mistake that happens occasionally is that instead of the final roster being submitted for review and processing, it's the easy summary, which is effectively the draft. Again, because that's not the final copy, we're not able to process off of that, and that's going to create problems that we have to fix. Units that are chartered by the same organization, so your local church, for example, may charter a pack and a troop, they have to have the same chartered organization representative. Now, that chartered organization rep only has to pay one fee, but effectively that's a member of the organization representing scouting to the family of units that that organization may have. And occasionally what happens, I use the example of a pack and a troop at a church. If the pack and the troop don't coordinate and try to register two different organization representatives, what happens is that the first application that's processed becomes the coordinator of record. And then when the second charter gets processed, because the names don't match up, the charter is defective and effectively bounces. So again, units that have got the same charter organization representative, pack and a troop, troop and a team, pack, troop and team, whatever combination it may be, make sure that you coordinate so that you've got the same charter organization representative. And then the last point, for those units that do not electronically get the approval through the online process and require the signature, is that we get the wrong person to sign the application form itself. So the top page of the physical charter application has to be signed by either the executive officer.
Hey, Dan, I'm on a Zoom call about rechartering, which is everything I've known for 25 years, but I got the rest of the popcorn. I went up to Menasha. So are you guys going to be home?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're not. I won't be off this call for another 15 minutes, but I can come by after that. Yeah, I've got the chocolate stuff that you need now, all of it.
Yay!
And I left you a message earlier.
Sorry about that. So again, is make sure the executive officer or the charter organization representative signs that hard copy. And again, occasionally a non-authorized signature, such as a committee chair or your scoutmaster or cub master, will sign. And again, we can't accept that. We have to go back to get the proper signature. So at this point, what I'd like to do, that ends the formal presentation that I've got. What we're going to do, and Doug and Jen have been monitoring the chat questions that you've been submitted. So we'll try to capture those and we'll respond to as many of those as we can. Again, the plan is that after this meeting is posted, we'll summarize all the questions and then follow up. If there are any questions that are specific to a unit, please indicate on the chat that you'd like a personal one-on-one follow-up, and either myself or somebody else from the commissioner team will get back with you. The other option that you've got is to send an email, again, to the email box, baylakescommissionerhelp@gmail.com. So again, if you've got a specific unit level question, we can follow up, get back to you, and help you troubleshoot your question, whatever it might be. So Doug, at this point, if you've got some of the questions, we'll see if we can start answering them and clarify.
Sure. So Jen Newville, our council registrar, has done a great job answering just about every question as they came up. I can summarize a couple of the key ones. When you start this process, the best way to avoid trouble with who's doing the work is when you log in for the first time, make sure that's the volunteer that's going to be the processor. So that came from a question, do I have your processor logged in the first time in the system? Another key question and point is that we recommend that your unit pay by check. That gives you more options, especially if there's changes late in the process. You're not locked in. And also, as you get to the point where you're ready to print and turn in your charter, make sure you do not print and use the easy summary because we're just not allowed to use that. And that comes up before your actual printed charter. So get by that easy summary process before you do that. Another great question was returning members, whether they already lapsed or not, they do not have to pay the new member fee. That's that new $25 fee. So if they were a scout and now they're going to be a venturer, or if they lapsed before and now they're coming back, Jen says they do not have to pay the $25 fee. Recently registered leaders who registered online or by paper, as long as they filled out the new background check, they don't have to do that again. They already have that permission. So those are some of the key ones, and I'm going to let Jen speak up if she has any key points she picked up.
Hi, everyone. Honestly, I think Dave and Doug both covered everything I can think of. Please know that we're going to be posting this presentation as well as the PowerPoint on the resource page for you all. And as questions come up over the course of the next couple months on this, just know that council is here with you. And we've got a number of folks that are able to answer your questions. And we'll do our best to get you what you need and as fast as we can. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jen. So again, that ends our presentation. As I mentioned and Jen has reinforced, we will be posting both the recorded presentation, the PowerPoint slides, and then responses to the chat questions that came in. That'll be on the Internet Recruiting webpage off the council website. So look for that updated information. And certainly check with your commissioners at the district level if you've got questions. Again, our goal is to make sure that you've got a smooth and convenient charter renewal process. And just to encourage you to start the process as soon as possible. December 21st may seem far away out there, but again, the time will go fast and there's a lot of holiday and just general busyness that goes on in between there. We don't want that to be a distraction. So again, thank you for all that you're doing for scouting. Scouting is probably needed more now than ever with all the challenges that we're facing. Again, check the Scouting at Home resource page on the council website if you've got questions on how to deliver scouting, especially at the Cub Scout level. Great links and resources, videos and workbooks for all the Cub Scout adventures, so that, again, you don't necessarily have to have a den meeting to be able to deliver good Cub Scouting to the boys that may be in your pack. So again, thank you. Thanks for all that you're doing for scouting. Scout on.